September 1943. A Belgian businessman walks through the Krupp armaments factory in Essen, Germany. His papers are perfect. His cover story is airtight, inspecting equipment for Belgian factory contracts. German engineers escort him past tank assembly lines, blueprints pinned to walls, production schedules that Allied intelligence desperately needs. He nods politely, asks questions, takes mental notes, but he's photographing. Every few steps he pauses, hand resting near his lapel. Each pause captures an image, a blueprint, a production chart, a prototype weapon. But there's no camera in his hands, no suspicious equipment. Because the camera is in his coat, hidden behind a buttonhole. A lens no bigger than a pencil tip peers through an ordinary button, capturing photographs while he appears to stand still. The camera fits entirely within his breast pocket, silent, perfectly disguised. German security forces have searched thousands of suspects and never identified these devices. He leaves 2 hours later. Guards check his briefcase, examine papers, pat down his coat. They feel the camera's bulge, but assume it's a cigarette case. He boards a train carrying 36 photographs of German industrial secrets, production bottlenecks, bombing targets, tank armor weaknesses, all captured by a camera smaller than a cigarette pack that Germans held during the search and dismissed as harmless. How did Britain miniaturize photography until cameras became invisible? How did a palm-sized device capture secrets that helped bomb Germany into submission? By 1940, Britain faced a critical intelligence gap. Agents infiltrating occupied Europe could observe German installations, see weapon designs, read production schedules. But memory was fallible. Was tank armor 80 millimeters or 90? Those details mattered enormously. Verbal reports were valuable. Photographs were proof. Conventional cameras were impossible to conceal. Even the smallest measured 10 by 15 centimeters, far too large to hide. They required obvious handling, produced audible shutter clicks, used bulky film formats. An agent carrying a conventional camera might as well carry a sign saying spy. SOE needed something revolutionary, small enough to hide in clothing, silent enough to operate undetected, simple enough to use without drawing attention, capable of producing photographs clear enough that blueprints could be read after development. The requirements seemed impossible with 1940s technology. But British optical engineers had been experimenting with miniature cameras since the 1930s. The challenge was making small cameras that produced usable images. Traditional optics required lens separation proportional to focal length. Shrink the camera and image quality collapsed. The breakthrough came from an unlikely collaboration between camera manufacturers and telescope makers. Telescope optics used compound lens systems that bent light through multiple elements, allowing long focal lengths in short physical spaces. Apply that principle to cameras, and you could create tiny lens systems optically equivalent to much larger lenses. By late 1941, prototypes existed. Cameras measuring just 50 millimeters square, producing images comparable to conventional cameras 3 times larger.
MI6 and SOE commissioned a crash program for operational versions designed for covert photography. The result was the Buttonhole camera, a miniature system that could hide behind coat buttons, in tie clips, inside fountain pens, or mounted on wristwatches. So small and cleverly disguised that German security examined hundreds of agents carrying them and never identified the devices as cameras. The engineering challenge was unprecedented. A functional camera requires lens, shutter, film, and body. Shrink any component too much and it stops working. British engineers started with the lens, the most critical component. They developed a compound lens using 4 elements arranged in a configuration adapted from submarine periscope optics. Each element was ground from optical glass to tolerances of 0.01 millimeters. The complete assembly measured just 8 millimeters in diameter and 15 millimeters long, button-sized. But through compound optics, it produced images equivalent to a 50-millimeter lens on conventional cameras. The elements had to be perfectly aligned. Even 0.05 millimeter deviation caused image distortion, making photographs useless. Engineers mounted elements in precision-machined brass tubes with threads so fine assembly required magnification. Each lens took 8 hours to construct and was individually tested. Only lenses resolving at least 40 lines per millimeter passed quality control. The shutter mechanism was equally sophisticated. Conventional cameras used cloth or metal curtains. Miniature cameras lacked space for such mechanisms. The solution was a rotating disc shutter, a circular plate with a precise opening rotated by a spring-loaded mechanism. When pressed, the disc rotated once, briefly exposing film. The cycle took 1/50th of a second, fast enough to freeze movement but slow enough for available light without flash. The shutter had to be silent. Conventional shutters produced clicks audible meters away. Engineers achieved silence through rubber dampening. Every moving part had thin rubber washers absorbing impact. The shutter made tiny sound, quieter than breathing. Testing confirmed operation in silent rooms was inaudible to people 2 meters away. Film was the next challenge. Standard 35mm film wouldn't fit the tiny body. Engineers developed custom 16mm format, half standard width. Special cartridges held 50 exposures. The film was high-speed emulsion, sensitive enough for indoor lighting without flash, critical because flash would be instantly noticed. The camera body was miniaturization mastery. Complete assembly measured 45 millimeters square and 20 millimeters thick, matchbox-sized. It weighed 85 grams loaded. Machined from solid brass for durability, finished with black enamel to prevent reflections. Every surface was smooth, with no protruding controls except a tiny 3mm shutter button. The brilliance was in disguise. The most common configuration was the buttonhole camera, lens mounted to align with a coat buttonhole. The button was modified with a slightly larger center hole, allowing the lens to peer through while appearing normal. Wearing the coat, the camera sat in the breast pocket with lens aimed forward through the buttonhole. Operating required pressing the shutter button through pocket fabric, a motion looking like adjusting the coat.
Alternative disguises included hollowed-out books, cigarette cases with corner holes, briefcases with lenses hidden behind brass rivets. One devious version integrated into a wristwatch. The camera replaced the watch mechanism, lens peering through a decorative detail on the watch face. Checking time could simultaneously photograph whatever was in front. Optical quality was remarkable considering size. Photographs showed resolution sufficient to read typed text at 2 meters and distinguish faces at 5 meters. Blueprints could be photographed and enlarged with clarity, preserving dimensions and specifications. This quality was achieved through precision lens grinding and careful film chemistry, maximizing limited film area. Focusing was fixed at approximately 2 meters, average distance someone stands from objects in offices or factories. Everything from 1 meter to infinity was reasonably sharp due to small lens aperture creating deep depth of field. Fixed focus eliminated adjustment mechanisms that would complicate operation. By mid-1942, 3 manufacturers produced buttonhole cameras under MI6 contract. Monthly production reached 40 units. Each camera cost approximately £200, a year's wages. But the intelligence captured was priceless. Training required 2 days intensive practice. Users learned framing without viewfinders. Cameras had none. They practiced estimating distance and composition by visualizing what the lens would see. The best operatives could take 30 photographs during 15-minute facility tours without anyone noticing anything unusual.
Little did the Germans know, their factories were being photographed from inside by devices hidden in coat buttons. The first major success came in early 1942. An SOE agent infiltrated Peenemünde, the V-2 rocket development site. Disguised as an electrical contractor, he spent 3 hours photographing rocket components, test equipment, technical diagrams. His camera was hidden in a coat button. He took 43 photographs while German engineers walked past. None suspected anything. Those photographs reached London 2 weeks later. British intelligence saw the V-2 rocket's design for the first time: size, shape, propulsion system, guidance mechanisms. The intelligence triggered immediate responses. RAF bombing raids targeted Peenemunde's production facilities. Anti-aircraft defenses were redesigned to counter rockets. Evacuation plans were developed for London. All possible because a matchbox-sized camera documented what Germans thought was absolutely secret. In occupied France, resistance networks used buttonhole cameras to document Atlantic wall fortifications. One agent, a supposed surveyor, walked coastal defenses openly. His camera photographed pillboxes, gun emplacements, troop concentrations. Over 6 weeks, he captured over 400 photographs covering 80 kilometers. That intelligence became part of D-Day planning, helping commanders identify weak points in German defenses. The cameras proved invaluable for industrial intelligence. Agents infiltrated factories carrying buttonhole cameras. They photographed production lines, documented machinery layouts, identified bottlenecks. One agent inside the Messerschmitt factory photographed Bf-109 fighter assembly. His photos revealed engine installation was the slowest production part, a bottleneck exploitable by bombing engine factories rather than final assembly plants. In Berlin, an agent working as a translator used a wristwatch-mounted camera to photograph documents during meetings. While Nazi officials discussed strategies, he checked his watch and photographed papers on the table. Over 8 months, he captured hundreds of classified document pages, including deployment orders and production quotas. The intelligence shaped Allied strategy.
Not every operation succeeded. In 1943, an Amsterdam agent was caught when a suspicious German officer noticed repeated coat pocket adjustments while touring a radio factory. The camera was discovered. The agent was executed. But even this failure revealed something important. The officer noticed behavior, not the camera itself. German intelligence concluded it was a one-off improvisation rather than standardized equipment. They never realized hundreds of identical cameras operated across Europe. The cameras documented war crimes, too. In Poland, resistance members photographed Nazi atrocities, mass executions, concentration camp conditions, forced labor. These photographs were smuggled to London, documenting German war crimes. After the war, some images became Nuremberg trial evidence. By 1944, German counterintelligence issued warnings about miniature photography equipment, without describing what it looked like or how to detect it. The warnings were useless. Security personnel didn't know what to look for. What if I told you a cigarette pack-sized camera photographed the V-2 rocket while German scientists walked past the photographer? The buttonhole camera revolutionized intelligence gathering. Before introduction, photographic intelligence was rare, maybe a dozen useful photographs monthly across all territories. After 1942, photographic intelligence increased to over 500 images monthly. The volume transformed Allied planning from sketchy verbal reports to detailed visual evidence. The cameras had strategic impact beyond individual photographs. British analysts trusted photographs more than human reports because photos couldn't misremember. Intelligence gathered by buttonhole cameras received higher priority in planning. Bombing targets were selected based on photographic evidence. Sabotage operations were planned using photographs showing exact facility layouts. But limitations were real. Small film format meant enlargements showed grain and lost fine detail. While adequate for general intelligence, they couldn't always capture fine details. Serial numbers, small text, intricate mechanical details were often too small to resolve clearly. Lighting was a constant challenge. Cameras needed good ambient light.
In dimly lit factories, image quality deteriorated significantly. Some photographs came back almost completely dark, wasted exposures documenting nothing. Fixed focus meant objects closer than 1 meter or farther than 5 meters were increasingly out of focus. This limited versatility. The sweet spot was 1 to 3 meter range where most indoor intelligence gathering happened, but some targets simply couldn't be photographed effectively. Film capacity was both advantage and limitation. 50 exposures was generous, but agents couldn't waste frames. Running out of film during critical intelligence opportunities was disaster. Some carried multiple cameras or spare cartridges, increasing discovery risk. Manufacturing bottlenecks meant demand exceeded supply. By 1943, MI6 had hundreds of agents who could use cameras effectively, but only enough to equip about 40%. Priority went to critical missions and experienced operatives. Despite limitations, impact was immense. Post-war analysis calculated photographic intelligence from buttonhole cameras influenced approximately 30% of Allied bombing target selection in 1943-44. The pocket-sized camera helped destroy the German war machine by showing planners exactly where to strike. The buttonhole camera never fired a shot, never exploded, never killed directly. But it destroyed German security by documenting what was supposed to remain secret. Every photograph guided bombing raids. Every image shaped Allied strategy. Every captured blueprint revealed German capabilities. The buttonhole camera reminds us that World War II's deadliest weapons weren't always dramatic. Sometimes they were smaller than matchboxes, hidden behind coat buttons. So small, German guards held them during searches without recognizing them. So quiet, they photographed in silence while enemies stood nearby. The agents who carried these cameras understood something profound. They were armed with documentation, not destruction. Every photograph was evidence guiding the war effort. Every image was intelligence that couldn't be disputed or misremembered. They transformed observation into proof, and proof into action. So remember the optical engineers who miniaturized cameras to invisibility. Remember agents who photographed German secrets while guards watched, suspecting nothing. Remember the tiny lens hidden behind a coat button that documented the V-2 rocket, captured Atlantic wall defenses, photographed Messerschmitt production lines. That's the genius of British World War II innovation. That's the weapon that killed through evidence, hidden in plain sight, smaller than the secrets it exposed. From fake pocket litter fooling interrogators, to biscuit tin radios coordinating attacks, to bicycle chargers powering transmissions, World War II weapons reveals how British intelligence turned innocence into lethality. Subscribe now for more incredible stories of weapons that killed through perfect disguise and brilliant deception.